And we welcome you to the Talk Shop in Studio 255. I'm Eric Henderson. My guest this morning, Daron Wyatt. And Daron, candidate for Albany County Sheriff 2026. Welcome to the Talk Shop. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Yeah, hey, we posted a graphic of your screenshot of your signage at Washington Park. It's part of the annual 2025 Winter Lights Festival, and as such, there's beautiful assortment of lights, and so many people came together to make that possible. You were one of those in entities that did that as a campaign contribution from your campaign. You are a sponsor of this year's event. How did you make the choice to do that as a community member?
So the Winter Lights Festival is a great event. We all know that people love it. You come there, get a walk around the park, go to Whoville for the coffee or the hot chocolate and everything. So it's a great event. People love it. The Winter Lights Festival is just one of a number of community things that we have been involved in individually and as a campaign to show our support for the Laramie community as well as the overall Albany County community. We have been sponsors at Laramie Jubilee Days. We've been sponsors at Little Post Rodeo. We've been sponsors at the Trunk or Treat. And tomorrow we'll be sponsors at the Shop for the Cop, sponsored by the Laramie Police Foundation. So to me, it is a way of giving back to the community. Again, it was a paid sponsorship, and at the same time get our name out there and be able to connect with the community.
Now, when I contacted you yesterday, it was relative to a posting that I did on the Talk Shop, which stated that the city of Laramie was permitting campaign signage in Washington Park. Campaign signage on public property. So the question was what's the policy? What's the standards and practice? What's allowable? What's the foundation of understanding for this being allowed on a public property space? It doesn't take very many people in Laramie to compare Winter Lights Festival and a signage for a campaigner to Freedom Has Birthday. And that is a special permit space as well. Research from yesterday gave me some of my own conclusions as I was waiting for all the mentioned parties to respond to the invitation. You were the first to respond to the invitation to the Talk Shop to talk about the Winter Lights Festival and your campaign signage at that event. You are the only campaigner that for any race that's chosen to sponsor this year's Winter Lights, to my knowledge. I don't know if it... Now, I will say, upon viewing Tough Guys Landscaping and Lighting's page for Winter Lights Festival, all of the sponsor levels are reported as sold out. They're represented as sold out. So I can't say as to whether anyone was an applicant denied or not, but I only know Daron Wyatt, candidate for Albany County Sheriff 2026, took part in that, and your visible signage is looks like about the 750 level.
Absolutely not. No, actually, I'm a gold sponsor.
Was it? Okay.
And that is because when
and what's
I
the
call...
gold? What's the gold investment?
$1,550.
$1,500.
Yep.
So the top investment, I think
3,000.
diamonds were 3,000.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So when I first called Tough Guys and spoke with Brian about being a sponsor, the bottom two categories were sold out already. Okay. I asked if it would be possible to be a sponsor as a campaign. They said yes. They also told me that it would be available to any other candidate if they chose to do so. And apparently I was the only one who chose to do so as a campaign. To me, it's just another way of being out there and showing our commitment to the community and getting involved in our local community.
And you are a happy sponsor.
I am.
And that is one of the most important things about it all, is that sometimes I think rules are sometimes something that we don't necessarily understand. Why is it that campaign signage can't be within 100 feet of a polling place? Why is it that someone on a ballot might not want to be submitting ballots into the machine for counting purposes. You know, there's a ripple effect in everything, and sometimes ethics and those kind of things come into question. I know on the post that I did, there was response from one other individual, and they are campaigning for sheriff as well, and they indicated their reading was that it was a violation of a statute, and I think it was 2225-115
Correct.
in
Yep.
Wyoming statute.
Yep.
Now, what I would add to that is, if you want to look that item up, you're more than welcome to do so. But you might want to also write down Laramie Universal Development Code 1514-120, and that is regarding signs. And across a balance review of both, you'll find that equal opportunity and availability to all are real key components to the entire consideration of wherever signage will be on public property.
Right, exactly. And
And
so,
whether that's, and I think the tightest restriction is beside interstate byways.
right, yeah. So I will tell you that my biggest issue with the whole thing, I know that there's deeper reasons for your post because you have some issues with some notifications on the city's part and stuff like that. My issue was my ethics and my knowledge of the law being called into question, saying that I was skirting the law, etc., by being a sponsor. I'm a paid sponsor for an event that is permitted and it is legal. Okay. I actually had a conversation with Chuck Gray personally last night, who said that statute is designed to be permissive, not restrictive to candidates on public property. So according to our Secretary of State, it's not a violation. And for somebody else to call my ethics into question, to say that I don't know Wyoming state law and to throw those kinds of stones, I think is it's improper. And I don't like it, and I think it should not be done.
Well, as you indicated, my rationale for posting is, number one, I have a mission with this public affairs driven show to talk, to listen, and to learn. And if you were asked what the role of media should be or is, what might you propose as that designation?
So, Eric, you're talking to a former public information
Yeah,
officer.
what would that be?
And I think it's perfect because transparency is key. I think it's key in city government, county government, state government, our federal government. I think transparency is important. I think that the role of the media is to portray accurately how things are being done, not to put a spin on it, and you know, I think one of the greatest things I heard from a speaker who was talking to a adjunct professor at the university about media relations is that a listener should not be able to hear or should not be able to guess what party affiliation somebody has based on their media reporting, right? Because it should be unbiased and it should be accurate.
I like that. You know, I want to inform, I want to educate, at times entertain. I want to be that public forum. The Talk Shop is exactly that. I think all too often in our public, we don't know how to communicate. We don't know how to agree to disagree, and only through practice will we get good at that. But serving a vital check on power by holding government and institutions accountable, shaping opinion, perhaps with the information, but bringing entities together, like between public and the citizens of the public and the governance of the public. I want to bring people together, and
Absolutely.
I want to bridge those gaps in understanding. And I have my master's in public administration, and not everything's even clear to me, with some law school in my background, some marketing, and some general principles of 30 plus years living in this community.
And my master's is in behavioral science.
And so when it came, I wanted, I asked people, what do you think the role of media should be? Because I've heard legislators be critical that media doesn't cover the legislature. Well,
here we are.
You might want to check yourself on that legislature, because you need to participate in that communication to be a part of that process as
Agree
well.
100%.
And so when it comes to being a forum for the discussion, I didn't know about Universal Development Code 1514-120. I didn't know about it, and maybe you did, but I didn't. And so I posed a question. I posed a lot of questions. The entire reason for posing questions is, in this case, you get more publicity because you got your sign on a page that has over 80,000 viewers per week, and that is the Talk Shop in social media. Now, I'm proud of that. It wasn't always that. Over 8 years, it started out like around 3,000 a week. It was nothing. And then it became more something. And only through good content, accurate content, in-depth questions or caring conversation, do you get
Unbiased.
to that? Do you
Right.
get to that, right? So I intentionally invite anyone mentioned on the show to the show. The show has a open format. You can walk right in. We'll have a cup of coffee for you. We'll have hot tea. We'll have a beverage of a cold water or soda variety. But ultimately, you have accepted the invitation. You've come in, and I'm grateful for that. I am also grateful for your Merry Christmas message. Merry Christmas, Daron Wyatt, Albany County Sheriff candidate for 2026, and paid for by all the necessary requirements. It's a proper due sign, and you're supporting a great endeavor. That endeavor is also supported by the city of Laramie fee for service agreement, $10,500 dedicated to Tough Guys Landscaping and Lighting for their work on the 2025 Winter Lights Festival. Now, for 16 years, I helped coordinate Party in the Park, which was every June. Not one of those years did we ever receive fee for service for providing a activity, an event for the enjoyment and entertainment of the community. Philosophically, not much different than Winter Lights, just a different time of year. But here we have $10,500 that's expended towards this, and yet there's still sponsorships that are being derived
Right.
from
Individuals or
individuals
companies.
leading up to, I think it was 250 up to 750, then 1250, 1550, and then 3,000 were the denominations. And I don't question how much work it must take to go into this. I don't know who pays the power. I presume that the city and county collaborate to pay the county the fee for electricity. I could be wrong. I'd like to know that better. I can only find signage on the park that says that it's a collaboration between this is powered by City of Laramie and Albany County collectively. Now, I'm over the top that we celebrate Christmas. I really appreciate it. And we extend it to the end of January in this case. And you didn't find any concern over being involved with this. Happy holidays or Merry Christmas. You didn't have any challenge in doing that, did you?
I did not at all.
And what does that come from? What is that security and that confidence, that care and candor and commitment come from in your estimation, Wyatt?
Most of it comes from my faith. I'm a born-again Christian. I was raised in a missionary family. I believe that Jesus is the reason for the season. And I'll take it a step further here. I try and glorify God in everything that I do, whether it's at work or at home. I don't always succeed, but that's my attempt. And I think that people need to know that Christ is the most important part of Christmas, and that's why I said Merry Christmas. I also think that it's important for people to know that your public servants, people who are going to run for office, are supportive of ventures sponsored by and paid for by, in part by the city, I guess, but also through this private company, through Tough Guys Landscaping and Lighting, who does a ton of things for the community, not just here at the Winter Lights Festival.
The Welper family are all over the community, and so are the other contributors to the affair. The entirety, the entire list of maybe 23 to 29 sponsors is it's fabulous,
Yeah,
and it's
and
very
it's
representative.
growing every single year. If
In
you
fact,
talk to them, the number of sponsors has increased year after year after year to today's number of sponsors at close to 30, I think it was.
the only thing that is left to my question really regarding Winter Lights Festival is I don't understand how you can be sold out when there are so many other trees available. There have to be more extensions of, perhaps it's a power issue.
Or perhaps it's a capacity issue of running out of lights or whatever.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, maybe it's an inventory of lighting and that type of thing. Maybe that is. But that is a business concern when you have political campaign signage availability. That will not be a high enough bar to prevent somebody being accepted in with some type of involvement. If they wanted to come in as a political entity supported by public dollars and public funds, would almost necessitate, to my understanding, what my expectation rather, I would expect that there would be an accommodation that would be made to them if they chose to do that.
And
now,
I would agree. But from my understanding and my belief is nobody else even contacted them and asked for permission to do so.
And I don't mention it. I don't mention it in specificity to your campaign, but the topic. And what I've seen in 2025 is a number of entities that are supported by public funds, largely through this fee-for-service program of consideration in the city. And then their activity starts to move away from many's perception of what public money should be for. And one such example is in the city of Laramie, we allocated $231,272 in community partner funds. Now, these were largely nonprofits. I think all nonprofits, like 34 nonprofit entities at or about. Now, these were allocated, and they all go up and they present each one of the organizations. And some of those funds have ranged widely. I mean, the funds have ranged small amounts to much larger amounts. And in years past, the Laramie Chamber Business Alliance historically was receiving $100,000 per year. In 10 years leading up to 2022, that's a total of 1.1 million dedicated funds in that endeavor, which is largely building business, maybe some job recruitment and other important endeavors. I don't question the validity of the endeavors, but
leadership training.
The funding that goes into this has since then, 2023, 24, and 25 respectively, is about 10,000 annually. Now, over 10 years, that's going to be another 100,000. So we're looking at $1.2 million in 20 years that's been invested into this business building entity. Imagine how many businesses would be aided by $10,000 annually. Many of them, I wonder if they make $10,000 annually. That is their decision and their business model. But I didn't recognize this as much of a concern to me until in 2025 I recognized that private interests, business interests, are having to compete against public dollars. You're competing against the government, so to speak. With Laramie Main Street Alliance, they perform a marketing function for the city of Laramie. In 2008 or 2009, that was not put out on an RFP. That specific purpose was not put out, and therefore annually has just been renewed without having opportunity for public to bid on that commercially for that marketing entity.
So, like I said at the beginning, there's a lot more to this, and that's way beyond the scope of me having a sign at the park.
Sure.
So, now, playing devil's advocate, though, Eric, I'd ask this, and I don't know. I haven't looked at numbers or anything like that. But has there been a return on investment for, let's say, the chamber, where it's brought revenue into the city that kind of equalizes that? I don't know the answer to that, but that's just a thought.
Years ago, I said I did 16 years with KCGY and KOWB. That was the radio entity that I did promotions and marketing and sales for. And in that time, like I said, we didn't go to the city requesting funds for that. Now, there were events like Huck Finn Fishing Derby that went 50 years and long preceded me and whatnot, where the Game and Fish Department contributed, a lot of entities contributed and collaborated. And it was kind of you guys promote and recoup your costs through resale of sponsorships and stuff like that. So there's a calamity of things that happen. And in a small town, I think it's even more important that those kind of things happen. Mm-hmm. Over that time, Hometown Holiday Hurrah was about a decade-long initiative that had jingle bucks, and as a promoter in radio and such in the community, I was as engaged in building the interests of the chamber and the drive to support them as possible. Go back 2 months and I found City of Laramie residents within 300 feet of a proposed zoning change application. And I found those people were, first of all, they weren't given accurate, error-free public notice of public hearing. The city planning department and the city council were all made aware of the error, and they said how unfortunate it was, but they moved on with the vote and felt that the notification of 15 days as required by rules was insignificant. And this was all related to a Monday, November 18th, 2025 public hearing notice, which was on this industrial property, current zoning, and now it's currently passed to be R3 zoning, multi-unit housing. Now, in this matter, we once again have public money that citizens are having to face lobbyists like the individual directing the Chamber Business Alliance, representing in the application a private business entity. And all of us are invested in the chamber.
Right.
And I found it uncomfortable to have to fight City Hall. I mean, we didn't get respect and prevail as a West Side neighbor group in due notice. We didn't get the proper 15 days notice on an accurate notification, a public hearing. That to me makes a voidable deal. But why should we have to expend resources and do things just to get done what's right? Wasn't it you that said to me, I just want to do the right thing for the right reasons all the time?
Yes, I did. And when you don't follow a rule, it becomes a slippery slope. Right, so you have to follow the rules, and you can't decide which rules you want to follow and which ones you don't, because that's when lack of trust happens. That's when your constituents have issues. That it's like I said, it's a slippery slope, right? So, and this goes back to the whole thing with my sign in the park. I'm a rule follower, Eric. I ask for permission, right? And there's things that I've done in my campaign where I've called and asked somebody, "Hey, I'm going to be here. Do you mind if I do this?" Right? And if they say yes, great. If they say no, I abide by that. And you have to, especially in government and especially in positions of leadership, your subordinates, your constituents, everybody needs to know that you're going to do the right thing. That's where trust comes in.
There's a phrase, rules for thee, but not for me. And it describes hypocrisy, where people in power exempt themselves from rules they enforce on others, often stemming from entitlement. Maybe selective enforcement comes out of that, eroding trust,
right.
and creating inequality. And I am here to enfranchise people, not disenfranchise people. And to have the conversation, I have a great deal of satisfaction in talking, listening, and learning every day of my life. I'm a lifelong learner, and I have the goal of being informative, educational, at times a watchdog. I want to ensure accountability. I believe that in Laramie, media isn't the strongest
Right.
in coverage, and so when I bring up topics digitally or on the air, it's to be educational, it's to be informative, and it's most definitely to create a public forum where people are welcome, and they're welcome for more than 3 minutes, and they're welcome for more than 3 minutes, followed by someone else speaking for 3 minutes, followed by somebody who gets special care and influence with another 3 minutes of rebuttal after other people have gone. Now, these things have gone and they've shown inconsistency. As a candidate for Albany County Sheriff, how do you enforce clarity? How do you count on clarity in law enforcement? How important is clarity in law enforcement?
It's very important, right? Because you're charged with, realistically, you could take somebody's freedom or you could take somebody's life. And so if you're not clear in your communications, if you don't have clear-cut policies and procedures outlining how somebody can perform, making sure that they understand it, going over it regularly, providing solid, ongoing, realistic, and verifiable training to your employees, that all delves into clarity. But yeah, I don't think it's just in law enforcement. I think it's in any area of government. And, let's just talk about the election code, right? It's 235 pages, and I've read that multiple times. And even then, there's questions about the rules, right? I interpret the 22-25-115. It says that the city, there's exceptions to doing these signs on public property. And I believe that this current situation is one of those exceptions.
And here's another thing. In radio, we have protected time periods, 45 days to a primary, 60 days to a general election, and certain rules must be upheld because all radio was created in the public good, to be a service to the public that way. And as such, it becomes increasingly impossible as time diminishes to an election, or in this case, to Christmas, where Tough Guys undoubtedly had a lot of returning partners from years past, and they've gathered those through the years, and only an upper level sponsorship was available to come in this year. Well, you got that, and others have probably been experienced likewise, but not everybody could have got in, but everybody was offered the same point in time by a public notice. If that accommodates public rules for public dollars, I'm all good with it. I don't have any concern beyond that. I've learned a good deal by talking this over, by opening the public forum, and I invite everybody. If you have a question, if you have a matter you'd like discussed and opened to the public and brought out, maybe you'll do as I did and you'll take an observation and say, I see this sign that you have, Daron, and I've had you in Studio 255 to introduce your candidacy previous to our meeting this morning. But I like to know what and why, and I like to know that it's consistent.
Right.
And I've found some varied examples where public input, public comment is called for, but it doesn't seem wanted. There's vignettes of example, and I offer to many people. You want to go through video together? All the city council meetings are recorded.
Right.
They're all documented, and they're all available for scrutiny and substantiation. You can do that, and I offer that with respect to my criticism. Now, constructive, I think that Winter Lights Festival is fantastic, and I thank you personally for your investment in that. Campaign dollars for signs aren't free. Your materials aren't free. You are well in advance of the May 15th, 2026 open candidacy registration period. and so you're under your budget and doing what you can do. I'm glad to have had this moment with you and do that. I want to give you an opportunity to answer one question, if you would. Why do we have laws that are enforced or not enforced? What differentiates laws that they're on the books but they're not enforced, or they're not maybe they're not, I don't know. I'm brought to the question of, why do we have laws if they're not going to be enforced, assuming that they don't get enforced? I know in Cheyenne there was one on the code. Don't spit on sidewalks was an example of one. Don't spit on the sidewalk. There was like a $10 fine for that.
It's a municipal code violation.
Yeah.
Not a criminal statute in the state of Wyoming. It
Right.
would be a municipal code violation.
Right.
So I would tell you that there's probably still statutes like that in the city of Laramie that aren't enforced, or Albany County regulations that aren't enforced, and maybe it needs to be revisited and updated. Right. As far as general enforcement of laws goes, we have both the spirit of the law and the letter of the law, right? And deputies, officers, any law enforcement officer has, in certain situations, the ability to use discretion in enforcement of the law. I know the most basic example of this is a speeding ticket, right? Where are you going to get your biggest bang for the buck if you stop somebody for speeding? Is it going to be talking to them, warning them, talking about the dangers of what they're doing, or is it to be given a citation? And some of that is very, very, very situational, right? If I'm stopping you and I run you and you've got 16 warnings for speeding and yet you're still doing it, I think a citation is appropriate, right? If you're a soccer mom with 3 kids in the car and 2 of them are screaming in the back, and you're trying to adjust with everything, you've never been pulled over before, a warning might be the most appropriate thing. Now, when you're talking about actual criminal violations such as assaults, domestic violence, sexual assault, any of those, rape, robbery, murder, any criminal statute, there's no room for spirit of the law. You have to enforce the law according to the letter of the law. However, I can say that when you're enforcing the law, a lot of it has to do with how you treat a person, right? You can still treat a person with respect and as a human being and enforce the law. And I think that carries a lot more weight than just treating somebody like they're an idiot because they broke the law.
And when it comes to transparency, trust is upheld by that transparency, isn't it?
Absolutely. And that's one of the biggest things. And when I talk about what my campaign premises are right now, I talk about community accountability, professionalism, and striving for excellence. And with that accountability is transparency, right? Your constituents, everybody needs to know that they can trust you, that you're going to make the right call, even if they don't agree with it. I had a boss once that he and I disagreed a lot, but I never once questioned what his motives were, because I knew that he had the community first, the organization second, and then personal preferences third, right? And so we're not always going to agree with everything. We're going to make decisions that somebody's not going to agree with, whether it's internally or externally. But if they know that there's no agenda and that you're just doing the right thing, it's going to be a lot better.
How many strikes does somebody get before, under your administration, they would find no leniency?
What do you mean as a strike?
Well, if somebody sped, and you said 16 speeding, that's an example, but if somebody breaks the law in one fashion or another fashion or a variety of fashion violations, where do you draw the line in discretion? Where's discretion written into the law?
Discretion's not written into the law. It's a very, very personal and a very, very subjective decision. Okay, so I can't give you an answer on. Eric,
you were asked a really tough question at the Progressive Voter Alliance, right? You remember what that question was?
I do. Yeah, I was asked.
Share that with the audience.
I was asked by Lisa Kinney if ICE came into Laramie to arrest her, if I would intervene and prevent them from making that arrest. Yeah. And my response, and this is just, being asked and off the cuff, my response was that any law enforcement agency who comes to make a lawful arrest, somebody intervenes, that's unlawful, and I couldn't do that. Now, hindsight's 2020, and being able to think about that, there are organizations across the state that have made decisions that if ICE or another agency comes in to make an arrest, and the person doesn't believe it's a lawful arrest, the office will send a supervisor out to
like
verify,
an advocate, right?
yeah, to determine if that arrest is lawful. And if the arrest is lawful, they're going to have to let the agency make the arrest.
Right.
And if it's not, they don't have a warrant or they can't articulate probable cause, then it might be appropriate to step in. But yeah, it was a difficult question and one to think about, and I've thought about it quite extensively since that time. But
I recently, I have some homework to do. I understood that there was, I had a talk shop tip come in that there was a highway patrol arrest, and that in the detention period there was a death. I have homework to do. I have to look into this, and I had another where a public official was responding to a call, and there was an arrest of them while on that call for DUI. Now, I have two cases to look into, and I hope I find out great things, and it's all great. It was all done right, and there was nothing better could be done. That builds trust. That is one of those things that on an ongoing basis instills trust and faith. And how I report on it will also do credible work for my integrity as well in the public eyes, I hope, as well.
So the transparency and the timely release of accurate information is what builds trust. Not doing so is what diminishes trust.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Clear policies and procedure, accurate, simple reports, data transparency, leadership modeling. What kind of role model will you be as a candidate for sheriff?
Well, Eric, as you know, I've got 37 years of very, very broad law enforcement experience, including working gangs, vice, narcotics, homicide, domestic violence, child abuse, elder abuse, public information officer. I was a use of force review sergeant. So I have a very broad experience base, and then I have 17 years of my 37 years have been in leadership roles. I've learned a lot through that. As a brand new sergeant, I wasn't very good. As time progressed, and I learned that the higher you climb in an organization, the more it is about people rather than technical skills, the better you can be. I will model ethical behavior. I will model accountability and transparency, and I will expect that of everybody beneath me. Not just my experience, but I'm educated. I have a bachelor's degree in public administration and a master's degree in behavioral science with a minor in negotiation and conflict management. Just in closing, I'll tell you this: the fire organizations are very, very good about what they call leaders' intent, right? And the fire chief has certain guidelines that he will tell his subordinates, and these are what the expectations are. And he just expects the subordinates, whether it's a person of rank all the way down to the newest rookie, to follow that leader's intent. And if they do, the organization runs smoothly. And if they don't, then there needs to be accountability. And you need to look at, is it a training issue or is it just a straight issue that needs discipline? But I will tell you that I will model accountability. I will model leadership, and leadership comes in various forms. But really, the basis of leadership is being able to get an individual or a group of individuals to share a common goal in accomplishing the organization's mission, values, and vision.
Daron Wyatt, Albany County candidate for sheriff 2026 campaign cycle. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Eric.
And appreciate that. And any time, you're always welcome back in Studio 255. I appreciate you answering my call.
Thank you.